What is up, fellas, and welcome to another episode of Rewriting History with me, the Goob. Hopefully this goes well. It's not the easiest thing to just switch topics and do back-to-back live streams, but I think I've got it. So today we're talking about Djoser, the first king of the fourth dynasty being Khufu's dynasty, the Great Pyramid dynasty, right? And the fourth dynasty is basically where the majority of our thoughts and views on Egypt are formed, right? So Djoser's father, the final king of the third dynasty, which you might be wondering, well, why wouldn't that be one dynasty if it's a direct lineal descendant? His father unified Egypt once again through war. There was a massive war and conquest, and he managed to unify Egypt through that war. And then Djoser takes over. And now Djoser has a newly unified Egypt that he now has to consolidate and solidify. And he doesn't do so through war. He does so through religion, through politics. He establishes this idea of the God King, right? The guy, he is a god. He can do anything. He is all powerful, right? He is a living God King. Djoser is the one who established this, and Djoser is the one who built the first pyramids in Egypt. Maybe we'll get to that in a bit, but for now, he built the first pyramids in Egypt. So he went to war through delegitimizing the older religions and establishing him as the head of the new religion. And he also gathered up tens of thousands of vases, which is a fact that just gets completely glossed over by both the mainstream and the alternates. I've never seen anyone take a serious critical look at that. And to me, that's always stood out as insane. But the mainstream dismisses this as, well, he did this all to preserve the ancient kings and to bring himself closer to them. I think there's a major flaw in that thinking, because to gather up these tens of thousands of vases, and before I get into that, I just want to reestablish my idea that when we're looking at these vases in the timeline, when we're seeing them first appear in the record, the archaeological record, they're widely distributed. Rich people have them, poor people have them, everyone has them. And then you start to see consolidation of the vases amongst the rich, which is happening at the same time that you start to see consolidation of wealth, of rich people existing. So the people that got the vases became the rich and powerful people. I think the vases actually had a significant role to play in driving Egypt from, bands of people, tribes and such, to consolidated power, to, I am a rich and powerful person, I'm in charge of you guys. But for Djoser to round up tens of thousands of these vases, he had to launch massive archaeological excavations. He had to go dig them up from graves, right? Tens of thousands of them. Okay. This is not a small project. He is gathering these things up, and I have no idea what portion of them were in graves and what portion were in the hands of living people still. Either way, he got them all. He went around and rounded up all of these vases. So from these rich and powerful people, he took their vases. From the dead, he took their vases. Now, why would you do that? Because if you're trying to establish this new idea for how Egypt is supposed to run, and the linchpin of that is that you are an all-powerful God King that can do anything, and you have these vases that you cannot create, because Djoser is also the guy who had Imhotep. Everyone knows Imhotep. He's the great genius of Egypt, who is, again, largely responsible for a lot of how we think about Egypt today. And Imhotep made, whether it was him directly or whatever, but the fourth dynasty was making handmade alabaster vases, very clearly sticks with stones tied to them, They're wobbly. Not that they're not beautiful, but they're wobbly. They're visibly very uneven. They're made out of stone so soft that you can scratch it with your fingernail. They're nothing compared to these pre-dynastic vases. And so that's why I think he rounded them all up, gathered them all up, and hid them away underneath his pyramid. Now let's talk about the pyramid, because the idea is so well established, so well accepted that these pyramids were built in the fourth dynasty by Khufu, by Djoser, etc., by Menkaure. But the pyramids have been dated a few times now. And so let's just read this. Firstly, the pyramids of ancient Egypt have been C14 tested. This was not done to the stone, but applied to the gypsum mortar between internal stonework. Testing was done in 1984 and 1995. Results came back up to 400 years older than conventional dating. Additionally, the Dixon relics wooden shaft found in the Queen's Chamber shaft was also carbon-14 dated up to 500 years older than conventional dating for the Great Pyramid. This evidence is just ignored. The mainstream just goes, well, it's wrong, or the wood came from old trees. What's really interesting about this, though, is that this dates, because the results came back up to 400, up to 500. So they also came back, 200-300 years older, which puts them exactly in line with pre-dynastic Egypt, which was building the megaliths of, that mastaba I was talking about a few weeks ago with the royal facade, the palace facade, which is something, by the way, that Djoser also co-opted and claimed for himself. He took these things like the palace facade and several other things that were, symbols of greatness of the past, and he co-opted them for himself. He started incorporating it into his things to take credit for them and to cover up the grandeur of the Egypt before him. Now, I'm not suggesting that the pyramids were built by the pre-dynastics, but I am suggesting that it's something we need to seriously consider. Like, I have many issues with carbon-14, so take this with a grain of salt, by all means. But multiple carbon-14 results have placed the pyramids in the time period of pre-dynastic Egypt when they were making the vases. I don't think that should be ignored. I think we really need to seriously take a look at pre-dynastic Egypt and the things that they were accomplishing, which, again, a lot of this was co-opted by Djoser. I think that the tunnels beneath Djoser's pyramid were likely there before Djoser. Djoser's pyramid is very, very strange. It's built directly on top of a massive, massive shaft going deep down into the ground. I had to restart my computer for the previous stream, so I lost tabs that I had pulled up, but I'm going to pull up the sarcophagus in that pyramid real quick, because the things that are happening in Djoser's pyramid are not it's not like the other pyramids. So it's very interesting. This is looking down that massive shaft that the pyramid is sitting on top of. This is the giant granite sarcophagus that allegedly, they call it a sarcophagus, that allegedly Djoser was buried in. These stones are massive. Like, each one of these stones is significantly larger than a person. It's kind of hard to get the scale here, but there's this giant shaft directly beneath the pyramid. Then there's this giant granite box. And then there's all of these tunnels going off of the pyramid. The mainstream explanations don't make sense. They're like, they made the labyrinth of tunnels to hide the, sarcophagus, so tomb raiders couldn't get there, except that, like, all of the tunnels concentrate towards this center, towards the sarcophagus. So, like, if you got into the tunnels, you'd find it guaranteed. It's not a maze. It's not a labyrinth like that, but it is over 11 kilometers long. There are several theories, peer-reviewed, theories about how this was actually a water management complex, which I don't know. Maybe I don't know what these tunnels were for, but I think it's extremely likely that they were there before the pyramid was. Did he build the pyramid on top of it to cover them up? I think that it's a pretty easy case to make for Djoser being a great eraser. Again, you have to remember that this was a transition from normal kind of power to I am a god king. To create the image of a god king, you can't have evidence of a greater civilization from before you, of people who are accomplishing things that you have no idea how to accomplish. You look at the Osirian, which is heavily debated about its older origins. Some of the most massive and impressive granite work in all of Egypt, plus water management that we genuinely still do not understand to today. We've put massive high volume, multiple high volume pumps into the Osirian and tried to pump it dry, and we can't. It'll go down to a certain level and then the water just refills no matter how much you pump it. So there were some very impressive things going on before Djoser. There were megalithic works. There were, these symbols of the palace facade and everything that was co-opted by Djoser. He rounded up all the vases, not to bring himself closer to them, to erase them. And especially if you're buying into, this narrative that I'm putting forward, that the vases played a significant role in establishing these, centers of power, these individuals as powerful, rich, influential people in the first place. Yeah, you got to deal with the vases. And he did. So this is another short stream. I don't have a whole lot more to add. I could have done a better job of highlighting these examples of the things that Djoser co-opted and a few details, and maybe in a later video I'll expand on this some more and I'll build up my case to be even stronger. But we have multiple carbon dates placing the pyramids directly in that pre-dynastic time period, and they're ignored by the alternate because they're not old enough. The pyramids have to be 12,000 years old, and they're ignored by the mainstream because the pyramids have to be 4th dynasty. But I really strongly believe that the pre-dynastic Egyptians were doing things way beyond what we previously believed them to be doing. And not this super high-tech level of lasers, and space travel and shit. But we're talking lathes, we're talking iron, we're talking, very impressive megalithic and granite work. We're talking massive underground tunnels and complexes over 11 kilometers long, right? So I think that our view of Egypt, and specifically pre-dynastic Egypt, needs to be very seriously reevaluated. I also want to highlight that pretty much all of this on all sides is speculation. We're talking about 4,500+ years ago. We don't have documents and, written stuff from this time period. Everything that we know about it, for the most part, comes from later time periods, written about it well after, these things happened. You have lots of political reasons, like I'm listing from Djoser, to change what history is, to change the narrative, especially with him being the first god king. And so you have to keep that in mind and view these things through that lens. And I think there's a very good chance that we've gotten the pyramids wrong, we've gotten Egypt wrong, and we've definitely gotten pre-dynastic Egypt wrong. I'm going to keep digging into this. I'm going to keep researching. I'm going to keep building my case. But I think I've put enough here to at least get people to go, maybe it's worth looking into, right? I am talking massive shafts here, dude. I'm talking massitive shafts. I forget the dimensions, but this is huge. Again, each one of these rocks is significant. Oh, I'm not showing the picture, but the picture that I put here, each one of these rocks is significantly larger than a person, and this thing, fits down fully in that shaft. That shaft is massive. It's I want to say like 40 feet plus, maybe even larger than that, maybe 80 feet. It's a big, big thing. Gonna read through chat, and then I think this is no, don't fuck with me like you fuck with Danny. Dating is a mess. It's not like the other pyramids. All right. True, but it doesn't change my arguments. No, thank you for tuning in again. I'll go deeper into this in future videos, but my gut has a pretty high accuracy rate, and my gut is telling me that we need to seriously reevaluate pre-dynastic Egypt. Oh, one last fun fact before I sign out that I forgot to include in my last video is that along with the stone vases, I think being a product of a pretty industrialized system, there are peer-reviewed research papers talking about the redware pottery, which I will show that to you guys at some point, because some of it is really, really beautiful pottery. Like it is beautiful pottery. It's genuinely, I would love to have it in my own home kind of stuff. They believe that was also being created in an industrial way. And I can't even speak to it off the top of my head, but like the process of making that black top redware pottery is pretty damn technical, and it's pretty damn complicated. Like it's not just a straightforward making a pot kind of thing. Like you've got to have a decent understanding of chemistry and these processes. And they were making it with great consistency and great quality, like really, really good quality stuff. So again, just another supporting fact into this idea that like these pre-dynastics were industrialized. They were very intelligent. They were doing very impressive things. Their understanding of, things like chemistry and industrialization was at a level way, way beyond what we previously thought and what's currently accepted. So don't fuck with me, Eric. Don't fuck with me. But that's all I've got for this week. Thank you for joining me, fellas. Yeah, peace out. No, I'll catch you next time.